Your God is an evil God. He's really messed up in the head. It wants us to worship it. Your God is an evil God. Is an evil God. He makes you worship it. He wants your love and servitude. Your God is a messed up God. Oh, the converted man here. And we've got a video from Michael Garry, Expose Faith versus Science. Oh, yes, I can't wait for him to change what the word faith is at least 20 times in this video and to not understand what science is. I've seen this, I don't know, it's around. The faith and science, religion and science, the two can go hand in hand. There isn't a conflict, really. There isn't. You can do both. Yeah, look, you can do science all you want, and faith has zero to do with it. And you can do faith all you want, and science has nothing to do with it. Science makes predictions. It collects data. It does tests. It does repeatable tests. It verifies. It tries to falsify. So, if God is to be in the realm of science, then there has to be at least one thing that would disprove God. Ideally, more than one thing, but one thing would be good. There has to be something that you could point to and say, that there is not proof of God. It doesn't disprove God, but it's not proof for God. If everything is proof of God, then you have no proof at all. You need something to compare to. And if you don't have that, then you don't have anything other than a broken argument. And that's all we're going to hear is broken arguments, because that's all you're going to have. But I'm going to correct you in your multiple errors that I'm sure that you will have. Here we go.
Imagine a world where the unseen is as real as the seen.
Imagine a world where the unseen is seen. Okay, I can't do that because that's a paradox.
Where the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Guys,
a nonsensical world. Okay.
so welcome to this channel. In this video, we're going to go beyond the boundaries of science into the realm of the divine to prove that faith and science do not contradict one another. Now, people,
we're going to go beyond the realm of science. Okay, that's kind of like, you go to your doctor and you're like, I think something's wrong, And the doctor's like, yeah, well, we're going to go beyond the realm of medicine to figure out what's wrong with you. Oh yeah. You need this crystal. Here, hold this crystal for a while. Feel any better? No. Keep holding the crystal.
people will say they will only believe in God. They will only believe that God exists if believers can produce scientific evidence for his existence.
Some people might say that. I don't know. The standard for evidence that I have is the same for everything. So whether you're saying that there's a God, or that you have a lot of money, or that you ate dinner with the president yesterday, or whatever it is the claim is, my standard is the same across the board. You need to have empirical evidence of it, and or a repeatable test for it, and or a valid and sound argument for it. You need to have something that motivates me to believe that you have the truth on your side. And if you don't, then I'm not going to believe you. And that's it. So, what you got?
But is this demand reasonable, or are we limiting our understanding to the tangible? Critics often argue that even the philosophical evidence of natural theology isn't sufficient. I recently put out a
whatever your argument might be, arguments can never be evidence, because that's not what the word evidence is. An argument might contain a sentence or two that references something in reality that is itself evidence, but the argument in and of itself cannot be evidence. So you cannot go to your bank and argue that you have money in your account. You have to present evidence that you have an account with them, first of all, to be able to interact in any way with them at all. You can't give an argument for evidence. You need the evidence. So, no, whatever the arguments that you think you have for natural theology or anything else, none of those arguments could ever be evidence. Now, in regards to the arguments for God, whether they be natural theology or not, I've heard and read many arguments, and so far, they all have one or more logical fallacies. So if you want to present an argument, it must be free of logical fallacies.
a video about the 5 arguments that Aquinas had for the existence of God. And a lot of the feedback that I was getting on those comments was, oh, well, this is just philosophical, that it's not scientific. And they seek undeniable scientific proof.
No, I don't think that they do, but I think that you want to think that they do. No, I seek the same sort of proof that I have of you. I see you. I hear you. I could try to draw you. I could describe you to somebody else. You're tangible. Now, I can't interact with you physically because we're not in the same location. But if you interact with me at all, via speech, if we were to have a talk with each other, I would say something, and then you would respond to the thing I said. I'd say, hey, butterscotch on my head. What do you think about that? And you'd say, like, what the bleep are you talking about? Why do you have butterscotch on your head? I'd be like, I was just seeing if you were paying attention. Can I lick your head? No, you can't lick my head. Can I rub it because it's bald and go? I've always wanted to do that, And now you can't do that. And we'd have a conversation. It might be silly. It might be serious. It might be somewhere in between. But that would be sufficient enough evidence to prove to me that you are there. I don't have anything even remotely close to that when it comes to whatever the bleep God is. So I do not appear to have any evidence of God, let alone the same sort of evidence that I have of you. And it would be nice if you could provide me with that evidence. But if there's a thing that is God, that is out there, that exists, that is real, and it wants me to know that it exists, and it's able to show me that it exists, then it has not decided, for whatever reason, to do that. So I'm unaware of its existence, and it's not my fault, it's its fault. And before you open a holy book to say, oh, well, it says here that you were going to say that, it says here there's evidence of it. Yeah, I've got a holy book too, and I can do that just as well. It's just that my holy book is real and true and factual, and your holy book is made up. And we can play that game all you want. Or we can just stick with the evidence. What evidence do you have? Forget about whether or not it's provable beyond 100%, which would be impossible. It's absolutely proven. Forget that. What do you have? Just what do you have? Do you have anything at all to offer?
Yet science was never designed to explore beyond its natural confines.
Science was well, I don't know, design might be a weird word, but science has changed through time as different ideas about what to do with it and how to do it have changed throughout time. But basically, um, it's an exploration of what we see around us. That's all. It's get a couple of balls and put them on a couple of ramps and measure how far the ball rolls off that ramp, and then raise the ramp and try it again and record your findings, and maybe you want to make it a little bit more precise of measurements, and you want to get some more controls in there so you get more accurate data. But that's it. You just simply observe reality as best as you can and you document it. And then you say, okay, based on what information I've seen thus far, I'm going to attempt to make a prediction about what I think should be seen in the future. And if I'm wrong, okay, so be it. And then I write that down and I can't erase it. And I see, okay, did it turn out to be true? No. Then I write down that it wasn't true. And I go, okay, here's where I went wrong. I see where I went wrong. And here's what is true. And here's my prediction in light of the new evidence. Okay? Science is a wonderful tool that we have. It is applicable to reality as far as we can tell. When you say beyond, you would have to have proof that there is beyond. But what kind of proof would you hope to have if not scientific? Because science explores all the things that we can explore that there is to explore. So that's evidence, that's data, that's information that we're gathering to figure things out. So you couldn't then offer proof of something that you can't prove. So if you don't have proof, then it wouldn't be something that science could explore because it's unproven. And if it's unproven, well, that's a problem. Why do you believe it then? Do you have a test that you can run on it? No. Okay. Well, what then do you have for it? If you don't have any evidence for it, you don't have any tests for it. Well, I have arguments for it. Okay, are your arguments valid and sound? Oh, they aren't. That's a problem too. But why is it you only have arguments? That's kind of odd, isn't it?
Just for a second, for us to have undeniable proof of something, we don't even live our lives that way. So, for example,
okay, and you're going off of your tangent, which is essentially a straw man of what you think that people are asking you for. 100% certainty. And even if it's the case that we don't live our lives that way, that's irrelevant. If somebody is asking for proof, whether they're asking for 100% certainty or whatever they're asking for, it does no good to say, well, but that's not how you live your life. You're not giving them the thing that they're asking for. Either you have it or you don't. So if you don't have it, don't waste my time by saying, well, but that's not how you live your life. Just show me, just say, I don't have that. Here's what I do have. So what do you have? But before you go off into your analogy, I'll say this. Do you cross the street without looking both ways before you cross the street in case there's cars coming? Or do you just walk straight across the street and hope that there's no cars coming? Well, then if you look both ways, that's looking for the evidence of cars. And if you see none and you hear none, then you deduce that it's probably safe to cross the street. You look left, you look right, you look left again, you look right, you cross the street. Perhaps you do it quickly just to make sure, And it's better to cross when the light is with you and all those things. But you do all that because you want to continue to exist. You don't want to get hurt. You don't want to cause damage to somebody else. So you don't use just, well, I think I'm going to make it across the street. I mean, maybe I've crossed the street a dozen times. Every time I've crossed the street, there's never been a car coming. So I don't look left and right anymore. Well, but it's still a good idea to look left and right. Why? Well, because there might be a car coming. Wow, but there's never been. Yeah, that's when a car comes and hits you. I look both ways, no matter how quiet of a street I'm on, because that's just a safe way to do things. So that is employing a methodology that is not about faith. It is employing a methodology that is about seeing what data I can collect.
Example, if you wake up in the morning and you get in a car and you're going to work, how are you 100% certain that you're not going to die in a car accident on the way to work?
Yeah, and so your broken analogy doesn't work. You have no way to know what will or will not happen to you at all. Not even a little. And we really don't typically spend a lot of time or energy worrying about those sort of things. But we do attempt to avoid those sort of things, don't we? So, you know, I wake up. Well, first, there's some things I might want to do before I get in my car to drive, but nonetheless, get in my car and, well, I'm going to look behind me before I pull out. I'm going to look to the left and right before I turn. I'm going to have my signal on, even if there's nobody behind me. You know, I'm going to attempt to drive defensively, drive safely, knowing that my primary rule for driving is everybody that's driving is an idiot. That includes myself, so that I stay humble and I stay aware. Both hands on the wheel, where they're supposed to be, and paying attention at all times to everything that I can pay attention to. And so all of that is gathering data. That is not living by faith. Living by faith would be I close my eyes, I turn on the car, and I don't know what gear it's in, but I'm just hoping for the best. That's what living by faith would be.
When you get up to go to the airport and you're flying to Los Angeles from Arizona, you don't even know the pilot's name. You don't know if they have any credentials. You don't know if they're under the influence. You don't know anything.
Okay, you can find out the pilot's name before you board a plane if you wanted to. And you can verify that their credentials are in order if you wanted to. And the airport has a ginormous incentive to do so. Why? Because if something goes wrong, well, and also the airline itself, not just the airport, but the airline that's running that particular plane has a huge incentive to make sure that their pilots are actually able to do what their job is. Because if somehow somebody unqualified is flying a plane, that airline is going to get sued. Now, the airport might not get sued. They're kind of just a hub for the airlines themselves, but they might have some something that penalizes them as well. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but we have this whole system around it. Okay, there's the system of the airline that hires the pilots, that makes sure that they're qualified, makes sure that they have the required training, looks at their credentials, calls the schools to verify that they've done the things, has references and checks that, does a background check, all sorts of things. Now, could the pilot be drunk? Well, yes. I suppose there's ways to tell if a pilot's drunk. That's why you have a co-pilot usually. They might take over if they suspect the pilot's drunk. And if the airline has any reason to worry, they might start conducting random drug tests and random breathalyzers. And so that decreases the likelihood that people will do that. But also, again, the pilot has a huge incentive to not drink because they want to live and they want to have that job that they put a lot of time and effort and energy into getting. So, this ginormous system that's built around the structure of this social enterprise that we have is protecting you and I from the thing that you're describing. Oh, well, I have to have faith in our institution. I mean, if you really want to call it faith, I guess you could, but at that point, you have what amounts to a faith that is based upon examples of data, evidence gathering, tests, repeated tests, and systems within systems that ensure that things are running smoothly. If that's what faith is, then you have empirical evidence for it because we have all the empirical evidence that the person that wants to be a pilot has to go through a whole bunch of shit just to be able to get their license, and that takes a lot of time and energy and money, and that their reputation and pilot license is at stake. Their life is at stake. All the lives of people on board are at stake. And the airline has so many incentives to make sure that that pilot is properly trained and does a good job because they don't want to get sued and their reputation's on the line. And then the airport has also a reputation to maintain. They don't want to be associated with an airline that's had problems in the past because that could diminish their business. And they also don't want to be sued. But there's empirical evidence for all of those things that are all connected and working together. So, do you have any evidence for anything that you believe in that's even remotely close to the amount of evidence that we have for those programs that keep us safe?
You are just taking, you just have faith in the evidence that you have based on what you know already that you will be safe. And that is faith. And
No.
you are not 100% certain that you're going to be okay or that you're going to land safely. So,
no, I wouldn't call that faith, but maybe I don't know what your version of faith is. This is, of course, what, faith means a certain thing, right? And so what is it? Well, faith is belief in something with no evidence. That's what it means to me. I think that's the most straightforward way to understand the word faith. I suppose you could look it up. There's a couple different definitions: complete trust or confidence in someone or something, or a strong belief in God or the doctrines of religion based on intuition or feelings rather than proof. Faith is not based on any evidence. When you say faith in this way, you're just changing what faith is to equivocate what faith is, to say, well, we all have faith in this and that and the other thing. And even if that's the case, which would be just a tu quoque, by the way, you still don't get away with not giving me proof of the thing that I asked for proof for. So if I said to you, you owe me $1,000, Michael, you personally owe me $1,000, and you're like, what proof do you have of that? Oh, you want proof, but you don't have proof for this and that and the other thing. You have faith in all those things. So why not just have faith that you owe me $1,000? Now pay up. 10,000, whatever amount it is. I don't know. It's just going to go up every time I say it. Because faith is not an adequate thing to have. What we need is evidence. And all you're doing is trying to change things to mean faith so that you can say, oh, well, we have faith in everything, which we don't. We have evidence for all the things. It's just we have trust in our systems. I don't consider that faith. Maybe you do. I don't know. But, well, why don't you just have trust in me? You owe me $1,000. Come on, just trust me. But you have no reason to trust me. I haven't set up all the systems around me to the point where you could trust me when I said that statement. So, in a similar way, when you're saying, hey, I believe in God, or there is a God, or whatever it is, I guess you're trying to say here, which you haven't gotten to yet, what you're saying is, well, we have faith, we have trust, and all these things. So, therefore, we should have faith in other stuff too. But that's not scientific, because science doesn't work that way. So it's still contrary to science. It's still opposite of science, because science is about the empirical investigation of reality, whereas this trust is more about the zeitgeist of society and our awareness that it functions well enough to keep most of us alive most of the time, although accidents do happen.
So we don't even have undeniable proof at all in our lives regarding anything.
And as I said, that's not relevant. You just need proof at all. What evidence do you have for any of your ideas? What are your ideas? What is it you're trying to present? Where's the evidence for any of that? And if you don't have any evidence, then it does you no good to say, well, but we believe in this, that, and the other thing without any evidence. That may or may not be true, but it's not relevant for whether or not we have evidence for this. I'm not going to believe in this thing unless I have evidence for it. And if I can be shown that I have faith for other things, and that's to say I have no evidence to believe in this, that, or the other thing, then I'm not going to believe in those things either. But I do have evidence for those things. So I can trust that those things will, generally speaking, most of the time work out. They might not, but the majority of time, they do work for the majority of people, and that's about as good as we're going to get. But the burden of proof is still upon you to demonstrate what the bleep it is you're talking about.
So, historically, if we actually look back on it, science, or scientia in Latin, means knowledge, and it embraced both natural and supernatural realms. It sought to understand.
Yes, that's correct. And there is no supernatural realm. That's the problem. In order to establish a realm, you would have to have some way to do that. How would you do that? Using empirical methodology. If the realm you're talking about is not empirical in nature, then there's literally nothing you could do to ever establish that realm. What you would do instead is speculate upon it. Basically, you're making stuff up at that point. Like, hey, yes, there's a realm where, we're all two-dimensional beings. All the anime is real in this world. Sure, why not? I can speculate too. I can make up any world I want in my head. But it's not a real world. So to show that it's a real world, you need some way to, demonstrate it. And if you don't have any way to demonstrate it, then why should anyone believe in it? So until you can demonstrate supernatural realm, we shouldn't believe in it. And before you say, but the supernatural isn't something you can demonstrate. Yes, I know that the supernatural is not something you can demonstrate. That's why I don't believe in it.
Understand the world from its cause, whether they were stars, planets, or even the divine. But this definition of science and how we looked at it really changed in 1837 when William Whewell coined the term scientist, right, to describe those seeking systematic explanations for natural phenomena, excluding the supernatural from its purview. So
I'm not even going to bother to see if that's true or not. I don't care. The supernatural could never be studied by empirical methodology. There is zero test that we could run upon it. unless it makes some claim. Then it can be tested. So, what claims do the quote unquote supernatural make? What predictions could you make about the supernatural realm? What data could you collect upon it? What do you know about it? What information is there for it? And where did that information come from? Because you're going to keep saying the supernatural as if it's real, but you haven't demonstrated it's real. You can say magic as well. You can substitute that. The imaginary realm. How about that realm? Well, the imaginary realm, that's not real. Sure, it's real. Why not? I'm saying it's real. It's beyond the realm of science, but it's imagination. Yes. And that's what the supernatural realm is. It's imagination. It's made up. It's not real. How do we know it's not real? Because we don't have any evidence that it is real.
It was only confined to the material world. But just because science focuses on the natural, it doesn't mean the supernatural, like God, does not exist, right?
Yeah, well, in order to establish a thing's existence, you need evidence. And if you have evidence, then guess what? Science can interact with that evidence. So, do you have evidence of God? Yes. Great. Then we can use science on it. No. Then why do you believe in God?
Right? So consider this. A metal detector can't find diamonds, yet their absence on the beach doesn't mean they don't exist. Because science, the material science itself, can't study God because he is not fully, he is both material and immaterial, but he's primarily.
Okay, so the metal detector analogy doesn't work because we have ways to detect. Well, I don't know that we have a diamond detector, but we do know that diamonds exist for sure. I almost said, no, we do have a diamond detector. I don't think we do have a diamond detector. There might be some way to detect diamonds that I'm not aware of offhand. But okay, so now you're making some claims about God. Finally. Now we're finally getting into what you think God is. It's immaterial, whatever the bleep that means, and some of it is material. That's interesting. How do you know this information about God? Whence did that information come from? Did you get that information from yourself? Did you get it from somebody else? Did you get it from a book, a website? Where did you get this idea from? Because that's important to know. Is there actual something that we can look at? If you're going to say that part of it is material, then at least that part could be investigated, couldn't it? And if so, great. But you're going to have to tell us what it is. But more importantly, you're going to have to tell us how you know anything about it in the first place, which you haven't done and you won't do because you don't want us to know how you know. But I know how you know. Oh, yes, I do. I do know how you know. Your book, whatever the holy book is, I'm guessing Christianity. I could be wrong. Your holy book told you that God is this, that, and the other thing. Or maybe some pastors and preachers or whatever told you that God is this, that, and the other thing. Or maybe you just kind of thought for a while and you just came up with these ideas on your own about how God works. But none of it is based on any actual substantive thing because God is a construct of the mind. It is made up by humans and believed in by humans. And you believe that it's real, but you cannot demonstrate that it is real. So, how do you know anything about the God? And if you were honest about it, I think you'd have to say, I don't know anything about it. It's all from this book, or well, there's these arguments that are broken that I think that those tell me that these things are true about God. I don't know how informal logic works, so I don't know how to analyze those arguments, but it sounded good enough for me, right?
Primarily immaterial. That's the essence of his being. So our tools for investigating the world.
Okay, so It's immaterial is the essence of its being. What the bleep does that mean? What does it mean to be immaterial? I really wish somebody would answer that question. I really do. What the bleep does that even mean? How does that work? Everything that we know about, for sure, is basically, you can boil it down, I suppose, to uh, electricity to some degree, and perhaps gravity, and the energy, if you will, energy and gravity. That's about the most basic you can get. The fundamental building blocks of everything are particles that have probabilities of where they might be. And they're able, and they orbit kind of, well, but they don't orbit. I always thought that they orbited, but that's not correct. They are in different spots depending on different things that apply to them and not the bigger world. And their energy. And that's it. That's as deep as we can go. The fundamental building blocks of everything are atom or subatomic particles that make up the atoms and make Okay, great. All right, so what is that made out of? Well, it's energy. It just exists. Well, how does that work? That's a good question. It's a real good question. Energy is a very complicated thing beyond my personal ability to explain because I'm not a scientist. And I think that at some point we're going to be like, we've run out of an explanation. But at least we have something. We can observe energy. We can use energy. We can produce energy and store energy. So we can run tests on energy. We can make predictions about energy. Magnetism and energy are pretty much one and the same, essentially, for all intensive purposes. So gravity is something there maybe there, and so the unified theory of everything might have something to do with the fact that gravity, time, and space and energy are all kind of linked together, and so you're going to have quantum physics merged with all the other disciplines of science, and there's going to be a single way to view all of it that's going to make it all make sense. We're not there yet, though, as far as I know, unless science did something really cool and I missed it. But that's going to be extraordinarily difficult to comprehend, but nonetheless, at least we're going to have evidence of it. When I say, how the bleep does it work to not be material? Energy essentially is material to some degree. It's still something that you would call, I think, material. It's a building block. So you're talking about a thing that has no building blocks. How in the hell does that work? At all. If there's nothing to build with, then you can't have anything.
It just has limits naturally. And science, bound by the natural world, cannot detect what lies beyond it, much like our metal detector and the diamonds, which is why we need philosophy and theology.
Well, philosophy lets you think about stuff, broadly speaking. It's just thinking about stuff, loving the idea of thinking. Theology, everyone's got their own, and you can make up your own. I did. I mean, I know of I didn't make up one. I mean, I know of a theology that seems made up, but I've been told it's actually real. And I may or may not have made it up, but I'll never admit to it, unless I did. But yeah, So what? I don't care about theology. Theology just says that stuff is true. Big deal. Anybody can do that. Philosophy, there really doesn't exist within philosophy by itself a way to verify that who's right in philosophy, Kant or Hume, Aristotle or Plato. Aristotle was right, Plato was wrong. Okay, but Aristotle was wrong about certain things. So how do we know that? Because he said stuff about the real world that we found out that was false. Oh. So as much as philosophy might be interesting, if it makes a claim about the real world, then you can use science on that claim to see if it's actually real or not. And then you don't need it anymore because the facts outweigh whatever the opinions are about reality. And if you have no facts, then you got nothing. And so far, you've had nothing.
And some advocate for scientism, the belief that science is the ultimate path to knowledge, yet this stance is self-refuting. There's
yeah. Scientism. I hear that. I'm sick of it. Okay. Science is the best way to know what is real. There it is. There you go. Oh, but can you use science to prove that? Yes, I can. If we include informal logic in science, then yes, I can. If not, then no. But then I can modify it. Science is the best way that we can know stuff, and the way to prove that this sentence is true is by using informal logic. There. Okay, I could do it. And what's your point? You still haven't produced any evidence. So I don't care whether you think it's scientism or whatever. That's irrelevant. I don't care if you think it's self-refuting. It isn't. But it doesn't matter. What matters is you still haven't offered us any evidence at all. And in fact, you've essentially admitted that you have no evidence. It's just that it seems to me that you're scared of saying, I don't have any evidence. Just say that. Just say there is no evidence. It's just faith. That's all I have for God is faith. Just admit it, because that's it. Just say that that's what the truth is. Just say, all I can do is say I have faith in God, and there is no proof at all. Otherwise, it would be science. Just admit that. But then, of course, that does separate faith from science, which is not what you wanted. But too bad. The reality of it is we have a way to investigate reality, and then we have faith. I don't need faith. I just need facts. You don't care about facts in regards to faith because you can believe whatever the bleep you want with faith. And you know that, which is probably why you're avoiding admitting the truth about your belief in God, that it's based solely upon faith. Because you don't want to admit, to some degree, that you don't have evidence for this. You want to kind of pretend that, well, we all kind of just have faith in things, so it's okay that I have faith in it. But just say it. Just admit it already. Just admit that you have faith in your God and that there is and cannot be any evidence for it. And all of your talking is just to get around the problem at hand. But I'm pointing out the problem, so you haven't done that.
No experiment to prove science is the sole source of the truth. They believe that if you can't prove it with science, it can't be proven. But there is no scientific method that states that that is true. So it's
if we include informal logic as a science, then I can do it with informal logic, but I don't know if informal logic counts as a science. I think it should, but, you know, that's just me, and that's only because I love logic, and I'm an amateur logician. I don't know what authority I'd reach out and be like, hey, guys, let's make this part of science. Like, who would I call? NASA? I don't know. Maybe I'll call NASA and ask them. Nah, they're busy.
It's really, it's a catch-22. It kind of contradicts itself. And we accept many truths that science cannot prove.
Okay, here we go. All right, finally, we're going to have something that we can verify these truths that science can't prove. We're going to explore whether or not these things can or cannot be proven by science. If we cannot be proven by science, then we cannot call them truth.
For example, we believe in the consistency of nature's laws and in moral values.
Okay. The consistency in nature's laws, period. Okay. Well, belief, no. What we observe is that these laws work every single time in the same way every single time that we've observed them. So we don't have any reason to suspect that they won't work the same way tomorrow. If and when they did decide to change how they work, well, then we'd have to update our understanding. And also, we might all be dead. If gravity decides to stop being a thing, yeah, we're all kind of fucked. Okay, all of us are getting flung off of the, we're getting flung into the planet. Some of us getting flung off the planet, and the few that survive aren't going to have a very long life because everything pretty much is getting flung off at thousands of miles an hour. So yeah, and there's not going to be any atmosphere for very long. And also the Earth is going to leave its orbit because there will be no orbits. So yeah, we'll be pretty much we're screwed. But it is an observation that the consistency of nature has remained consistent. That's not a faith. It's just an observation of how things are. And we've also observed that there's not any moment that we've ever seen where that stops being the true, that tomorrow gravity works differently than today. We've never observed that to happen. So there's no inconsistency to give us pause to think that it could change or will change. Perhaps it will, maybe it will, but we have no evidence that it will or even that it can. So that's not anything like faith. Morals. Morals are under ethical systems. Which ethical system you use depends upon which morals you're going to get. And all of that is studyable in various different ways by science. So those are both things that we can study through science and know how they work, why they work, etc. So yeah, no, we don't believe in either of those without science. We believe in both of those because of science. So yeah, what else you got?
Even though these cannot be scientifically verified.
Sure, they can. If you make a claim about a moral idea, and that claim is going to have, like, I claim X is a good idea. Well, of course, we're going to have to define good and all that. But let's, say, hey, I claim that it's a good moral to give me $1. That's a good moral. Everyone should just do that. Give me $1. Why, deconverted man? Because I said that. Now, well, captive desk might be like, hey, I could use $1. That'd be great if everyone had to give me $1. I want to do that too. And then like fish head salad be like, yeah, I want to do that too. They all want it. This guy, Dimbledy Tumblefoot, he wants it. Snuffy wants $1 from everybody. So we're like, you know what? Maybe this moral isn't really working for us. And so we go, well, how did we figure that out? Well, because everybody started demanding dollars from everybody else and nobody wanted to give them any dollars and it didn't work as a system. Hey, look, we observed it, we tested it, and then we got a result from it. What's that called? What's the word for when you do that? It's on the tip of my tongue. What's the word for it? Oh, science, that's it. Yeah. So yes, you can test the moral ideas, if not in society itself. You can definitely test them hypothetically in your head, if nothing else. And but you need to say what the thing is that you're doing to make a test on it. What your goal is and how you want to reach it. So all of that's testable, and all of that can be we can use data for all of those things. So you're wrong about that. What else you got?
And science has given us both wonders, it's given us horrors, from life-saving medications to weapons of mass destruction. It's just a tool incapable of guiding us on what is good or evil. So
Wrong, actually. If we define good and evil, then science would absolutely be able to tell us which way is which. We just have to define it. So, what do we mean when we say good? Now, for me, it's pretty simple. I define good as things that benefit one or more living organisms. Anything that's a benefit. Well, what's a benefit? Because I could go deeper, right? Beneficial means that it enhances well-being, increases longevity, you know, maintains health, uh, you know, gives you motivation, you know, things like this. And you could go deeper and give a more precise definition. And people have written papers about this. Oh, yeah. And then they've published these papers and had them this thing called peer reviewed. And they did this in a field called, what was the field called where they did this? Oh, science. Right. In fact, I think that there's a whole term for this. Social sciences? Nah, yeah, that's a thing. Yeah. Humanities? Yeah, that's a thing too. Yes, we can do that. If the goal is stated, I want to decrease harm to living creatures, then what will cause the least amount of harm that I can do? It's a very complicated question, by the way, to ask, but I can at least begin to answer that question utilizing science. So, for myself, for humans at any rate, what could I do to decrease harm? Well, less sugars, more exercise. I don't want to do either of those. Well, okay, well, that's your desire, but yes, those are things I can do. We're not talking about my desires. We're talking about what could I do to decrease the harm that I'm doing to myself as a human. And that's absolutely knowable via science. The medications, and I'm pretty open about talking about my mental issues, you know, to some extent. I have several I have a couple different, well, not several. I have two medications I take for my mental stuff that otherwise would not be good. And the reason I take them is because my brain doesn't produce the chemicals the way it's supposed to. So I have to take them because they give me those chemicals. So if I don't take them, my brain doesn't naturally produce enough of those chemicals, and without those chemicals, I do not function in a way that is fully good for myself or anyone else. That's all science. Everything about that science. Every bit of that is due to science, and none of that's due to faith. Not even a little bit.
there is no morality with science, even though we may be given opiates, right, that grow from the earth. We can use those in one way, but we can also use that for damaging one's health and abusing them. Same with alcohol. Same with nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah, and like Fish said here, Fish Head Salad says you need to define what you mean by good. You can't just, if you're going to be scientific about it, or if you want science to be able to do it, then yes, you would first have to define what you mean. And beneficial to life, let's say that. Okay, well, we could get complicated about what we mean by beneficial. Doesn't hurt things. How about that? Let's get real stupidly simple. Well, what do you mean by hurt things? Okay, anything that doesn't prolong life, anything that extinguishes life, or that could harm people, that is cause physical and or mental trauma to them. How about that? Okay, a little bit clearer. If you want more complicated than that, all right, it's going to take me a few pages to write out, but I could do it. And guess what? People have already done this, but nonetheless, it can be done. Just because you're not aware that it's been done and can be done doesn't mean it has been done. Nuclear bomb. Okay, well, can we use that in any beneficial way? I don't think so, but I don't know. There might be some way that we could use it in a beneficial way to life that I'm unaware of. But based on what little I do know, I don't think that there is. So I think that the ideas that allow us to do that, we can use a nuclear technology to make a power plant, but making it into a bomb is probably not a good idea. So why don't we just not do that, shall we? Because it's not going to benefit life. It's not going to increase well-being. It's going to decrease well-being. Now, if we're being all scientific, you say, well, all right, Deconverted Man, if we bomb this region, we wipe out all these people, and then we've reduced their carbon footprint to 0. So that's good. And then we'll have a little bit more resources to go around. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of atomic fallout, and it'll be quite some time before we can use that land for anything useful, but maybe it will be good in the long run. And I'd say, well, it's an interesting idea, but you're not benefiting those people. And what matters in my ethical system is the most good for the most amount of people right here, right now. And appealing to a consequence or saying that later on it will be beneficial doesn't matter. The ends cannot justify the means. The means must be consistent. And all of that is scientific in nature. I don't need faith for any of it at all, not even a little.
And so to fully grasp the mysterious existence of God, including the divine, we must look beyond science to philosophy and personal experience.
Okay, what philosophy would you have us look at exactly? And how do you know that philosophy will enable us to get to these ideas? And more importantly, can we use philosophy to find out what is true or false about reality? As far as personal experiences go, okay, let's talk about that because guess what? We can do science on that. And we have. I say we, I don't mean myself included, but it's been done. You've had a personal experience of what exactly? Please tell me all about your personal experience that you've had with God. Please do describe it in detail. And I guarantee there's a naturalistic explanation for it. I absolutely guarantee that there is. And so all you could then hope to do is say, but I don't believe that that's it, but it could be something else. Sure, it could be, but you have no proof of it. Plenty of people have had so-called experiences of all sorts of things, or so they claim. Been kidnapped by UFOs. Oh, that's demons, obviously. Or left their body and all these sort of things. But all of it's mundane. All of it's explainable by natural phenomenon. Every single thing. So your personal experience is a data point on the chart. And I'll tell you why we know that this is not a good way to know what's true. There's a thing called homeopathy. Homeopathy. Oh, man. Homeopathy. There it is. That's the word. And idiots believe that this works. And all it is water. You're drinking water. But what they did is they diluted a thing in the water, and it's diluted and diluted and diluted more and more and more until, it's water. And it's super powerful water now. And you drink it, or you eat it, or whatever, and it's supposed to work. And some people will swear up and down, left and right, that it worked for them because they are a single data point on a chart. And they don't know the rest of the chart shows this giant bell curve that they're a part of, and that they are on one end of the bell curve with a minority few people who recovered from whatever it was on their own, and it had nothing to do with the thing that they drank. It's also been studied with placebo effects and nocebo effects. This has been studied. The phenomenon has been recorded. If you tell somebody that a pill will make them feel better and they take the pill, they might feel a little bit better for a little bit amount of time. But there's a limit to that. And the limit is that the pill doesn't actually do things that a real pill could. The amazing advantage of taking aspirin over a sugar pill is that aspirin will work as intended, regardless of my belief in it or not. Whereas the sugar pill, the placebo, only works if I believe in it. So belief or lack of belief, nocebo is when you believe that it will hurt you. You'll take this pill and it may make you feel sick. And you might feel sick, even though the pill is just sugar or salt. It's nothing in it. Nothing that could make you sick at any rate. But if you believe it, you physiologically might make yourself sick. But there's a limit to that too. You can't break your arm by taking a pill. Well, you can break your arm, but it will be separate to taking the pill. You can't mend your arm by taking a pill either. But there are medicines that you can take that will help your arm to mend, or at least make it less painful while you're waiting for it to mend or whatever. So the placebo and nocebo effects are understood by science. And we know that a personal experience of something that people think is divine can be easily explained by the way that brains work. And whatever it is that you think happened can be explained by something natural. And if it can't be, then all you're doing is appealing to personal incredulity and or personal ignorance. I don't know, therefore God, or I can't believe it isn't God, so it must be God. You have been trained to believe that it's God. You will experience this thing when you pray. You've been told that time and again at church, so much so that your brain believed it. So when you went to pray, guess what? Your brain said, hey, I'm supposed to experience this thing. And part of your brain is like, yeah, but we're not experiencing the thing. And the other part of your brain is like, yeah, well, we need to experience the thing because it's making me feel bad that we're not experiencing the thing. Fine, here's the thing. And you start to experience it because your brain is making you do that. Your brain is producing the experience. And we have this handy dandy thing called the God helmet. And that's been done on people. And it's pretty cool. You put this thing on people and they experience God or something like it. And it works through, it does magnetic fields or whatever. But what's really cool is the placebo God helmet, where it looks like it's doing something, but it's not. And those people still experience God. So is God deciding to interact with people when they have the placebo helmet on or when they have the electronic helmet on? Or is it just something that the brain is doing? Maybe it's just something that the brain is doing and it's not actually God because we have a fully natural explanation. And it may be appealing to your personal experience is the worst possible way that you could go about it, because if you put yourself on a data sheet and then step back to see where you land on that spectrum of other data, and you realize that you are one dot among many, then you will see that your experience amounts to about the same as everybody else that's ever claimed to have any sort of supernatural, paranormal, religious, alien, whatever experience. And all the phenomena are fairly similar, and they're all in the brain and only in the brain. So, using personal experience and nothing else, can you find out what's true or not true? Is it a good methodology to utilize? Or is it just sometimes it works? Yeah, sure, sometimes it works. I'll grant that. But does it work all the time to get to the truth? No. Why? Because you could be wrong. What you think that you feel or are experiencing could be something else. How do you know that it's God? You don't. You assume that it's God. You believe that it's God. And I'd say, well, but what about the personal experiences of other people? Are we going to ignore those? If not, then please read Langston Hughes's Salvation, where he doesn't get an experience of God. And he really, really wanted one. How do you explain that? How do you explain the countless atheists out there that have had no experience of God, or, like myself, used to believe in God and thought that we had experience of God, but once we realized that God was a figment of imagination, we realized the thing that we thought was God was always us the whole time. And now I look back and go, man, it was always me. I gave myself the self-confidence to do that thing. That was me. It wasn't God. I made myself feel better. It wasn't God. But our personal experience doesn't count, right? Oh, maybe personal experience is the shittiest way possible to know if something is true or not. I don't know. Just saying.
Acknowledging that some truths lie outside of scientific discovery.
No, they don't. They don't. Period. They just don't. Because the thing is, reality is what there is. And the best way that we have to understand reality is by studying it. We call that science. And that's it. That's all we can do. We're not going to know everything. We're going to get things wrong. But we're going to try. To say that there's something beyond that, great. Prove it. You don't have any proof. Then you got nothing.
Here's another example. Imagine that you are charged with a crime and
okay, enough with your examples. Just give me the evidence of God, or admit that you have faith in God and nothing else. One or the other. Because I'm tired of this.
You can't prove it. But I can't prove it. And unfortunately, the evidence is stacked against me. How many innocent people end up going to prison?
Well, that's a good question. I guess we can't use science to figure that out, moron. God damn, you're stupid. Sorry. I don't mean to insult you. I don't. That came out of the angry part of me. I apologize. I take it back. You might be a moron, but that doesn't negate your crappy argument. Your crappy argument doesn't need to be negated because it's so crappy, but I shouldn't call you names. I'm just doing that because of emotions. Because I'm just a little bit irritated at how fundamentally stupid your ideas are. And I'm taking that out on you personally, and I shouldn't do that. I do it anyways, but I shouldn't. Okay, at least I recognize it. All right, pulling back the emotion. Okay, undid that. Said sorry. Undid that. Okay, now I make silly noises, and everything's forgiven. Right? Well, actually, I don't need to apologize to him. I could just say sorry, God, and that makes it better, right? Oh, well, I don't know how things work. I don't know. I don't know what his religion is. So I don't know. So, anyways, do you have any evidence at all for your beliefs or not? I don't think you do. So faith is opposed to science then. Got it.
That I know for a fact I'm innocent, but I just can't prove it.
Yeah, that sucks. It happens.
So you can know something and you still can't prove it. That can happen, which is why philosophy.
Yeah, and that's why it's innocent until proven guilty. But it's not philosophy that will save you there. It's empirical methodology. And people have gotten out of jail thanks to DNA evidence. Oh, science. Oh, yeah. And actually, if we are starting to slowly move away, and I hope that we do transform our justice system because it's really badly done. It's unfair. It really is. The American justice system, the only one I can talk about, I don't know how other places work, is unfair. It works ish, but it's overly complicated. It's overly stuffed. There's too many laws on the books. It's far too complicated for people to understand. Nobody knows most of the laws in the states or America at all. Like there's a zillions of laws, and then there's laws within laws and all sorts of things, and it's just too much. We can simplify it a lot, and we should. And as far as evidence gathering goes, we should be more empirical with that and less reliant on eyewitness testimony. And slowly and surely, we're doing that. Body cams are becoming mandatory now for police officers. And I hope that it is a national, it should be a national law that requires police cameras always on front and back of the officers, or maybe several locations on them. And we can make cameras pretty small these days. So body cams that are constantly streaming back to headquarters so that it's recorded live back there, and perhaps it's put on the internet later after they have time to censor out faces or whatever, because people are innocent until proven guilty and all that. But we need that. Absolutely. And we're moving, thankfully, away from the reliance on methods that don't work into a more empirical methodology. But there is a threshold. I don't want there to be cameras everywhere outside. I really don't. Most people don't. We don't want that sort of thing. So we sacrifice our safety to some degree to have more independence. We could sacrifice independence for the feeling of safety, but it might be only a feeling. It might be only the appearance of safety, and it might actually be a sacrifice of too much of your freedom. So we have to be really, really careful with that stuff. And all of that, by the way, is all very scientific in nature.
And personal experience is so important. And critics of divine arguments often dismiss them as God of the gaps. Yet,
well, it depends what your argument is, but here your argument you haven't even presented. So it wouldn't even be God of the gaps. It would just be nothing. You've got nothing so far. So I don't know what your argument even is, but you also don't have any evidence so far. So there really is nothing to dismiss because you haven't presented anything at all.
These arguments don't merely fill gaps in our understanding with God. They reason towards a divine creator through observable aspects of the universe.
Well, I can't give you specifics unless you go into specifics. So could you give us an example of what you're thinking about?
So, guys, that kind of wraps up our conversation with
I
faith
guess he
versus
won't.
science.
All right. No
God
is
ended
the answer
actually
to that.
created science, and
Well, God created science. Yeah. Sure, he did.
what we do these days, the lens of which we view science is only through the material world, and God is not of the material world.
How do you know that?
He's just not of this world. He's of
How do you know that?
Spiritual world. There's something
How do you know
beyond
How do you know that?
this, right? Beyond
How do
the
you know that?
universe.
How do you
Even
know
that
that?
extends beyond the universe
How do you know
into
that?
nothing.
How do you know
Right?
that?
And we'll get into
into nothing. Well, that I agree with. But how do you know any of this?
Into that and into later videos. But anyways, guys, if you like this video, if you learned something, if you have any questions, comment down below, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for the next one. It was great seeing you.
About
have a good rest of your week.
Hope you respond to it. Yep. Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, no surprise, no shock. Well, I guess my comment got killed because I put the word video in it. I made a response to this. Hope you check it out. Oh, is that valid, YouTube? Can I say that? No, I can't say that. Well, watch video. I did. Eat it. Eat it, YouTube. All right, let's see if that posts. All right, let's see. News first. Oh, okay, there's my comment now. Never mind, I can delete the other comment. Oh, that's not showing up. Oh, fucking hell. Fucking hell. All right, anyways, that's it. So, faith versus anything. Faith is belief in things. I think that there is a limited use for faith. I have faith in my fellow human being that we can do better than we're doing. That's a hope. But I could say hope too. I don't have to say faith. I could say hope. There's a song. There's many songs. The song I'm thinking of from Power Rangers, of all things, but whatever. And one of the lines is, as long as I exist, there's hope in this world. Well, as long as all of us exist, there's hope in the world. As long as there's people, there's hope. And without people, well, there isn't hope, but, creatures will keep evolving, and maybe they will acquire the ability to have hope. So then there will be, again, hope in this world. Hope is an abstract concept that only can exist if cognitive functions are complicated enough for it to exist. We humans could make our sun into a rocket and move the entire solar system through space. That's pretty cool. I hope we do it. I don't think we will. But we've got to see the universe with humanity if we want to survive as a species. But I don't know that we're going to do it because we're so wrapped up in our petty arguments and disputes over land and who killed who. Hey, you killed 5 of our people. We're going to kill 100 of yours. Yeah. Well, shit. Okay. Can you stop now? No, not yet. We're not yet done making our point. Anyways, and many of us humans believe in things that can't be proven. And I think that might be holding us back too. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. I don't know. But even if we have beliefs, we can still work together to move forward, unless those beliefs prevent us from doing so. And sometimes religious beliefs have prevented us from doing things. So we need to be careful with that stuff. And I don't know. Seems to me like we could use science to figure out what we should or shouldn't do in regards to that moving forward. So what should our goal be, collectively speaking? It's a good question. I'm not sure that I have the answer. I'm just a simple man with a simple YouTube channel. Or maybe it's a complicated man with a complicated channel. I'm not sure what I am anymore. Probably I'm a lobster. I don't know. You can't prove I'm not a lobster. So maybe I am. Sure. Why not? Yeah, we'll end there. Thanks for watching. And hey, maybe, just maybe, we can use reason and logic to guide each other and ourselves forward, moving forward. Moving forward. Well, that was supposed to sound profound. Now it just sounds stupid. I blame somebody. I don't know. Are we done? Is it? Lobster.